All right, we're into the last topic of chapter 1. This is two-dimensional figures, day 2. In this lesson, we're going to review a few formulas here. So we have perimeter, circumference, and area are our vocabulary words. So the perimeter of a polygon is the sum of the lengths of the sides. So you can see if we have a rectangle here, we're just going to be adding up all of those sides to get the perimeter. So circumference is a special word for the distance around the outside of a circle. So the distance around would be in that pinkish area. And the area of a figure is the number of square units needed to cover the surface. So you can see that would be this interior part of the rectangle and the interior part of that circle. So in these cases, we typically use formulas to calculate both area and perimeter, and these should not be new to you, just a review. So first of all, we have the perimeter would just be to take all of the sides and add them, and the area would be 1/2 base times height. So for a square, you take all of the sides and add them, and you would get 4s as the formula, and then our area is s squared. So the area and perimeter for a rectangle, again, you'd have 2 lengths and 2 widths. So this should be a 2 right here. Looks kind of funky. So this is a 2. And the area is just length times width. And then for circumference, we have 2 formulas that are optional: pi times diameter or pi times radius squared. The area is pi r squared. So we'll just practice with a couple of these. So for the perimeter, for this first one, we're just going to add 2.3 times 2, and then add 2 times 4.6. Just going to press pause so I can get my calculator. So for our perimeter for this particular rectangle is 15.6, and especially in geometry, you're going to make sure that we're going to put the correct labels in here. So we're using centimeters, and this is a linear measure, so there's just centimeters. For area, however, it's going to be 2.3 times 4.6. So when we write our units for this one, we're just going to have to say units squared, in this case circumference, or centimeters squared. So the answer to that one, I believe, is 10.58. And again, make sure that you put the correct units, so centimeters squared. So the area, again, the formula for area is pi times radius squared. So our radius in this example is 4. So we need 4 squared, and that will be multiplied by pi. If you do it on a certain kind of calculator, it might just shoot you an answer that looks like this. This is an exact answer, and later on in the year we're going to use the exact answer, but for right now we just want to have an approximation. And so when you go to multiply this, sometimes it's helpful to put a decimal point after the pi symbol, because then we'll get a decimal output. Area is 50.27 if we round, and we will say inches squared. Circumference, again, we can use 2 formulas if necessary. In this case, they gave us the radius instead of the diameter, so I could do 4 times pi times 2, or that would be 8 pi. Again, we just want a decimal approximation, so it would be 25.13. And again, this would be just in inches. Okay, so on the next slide, I'd like you to pause the video, go ahead and try those 2 examples, and then we'll come back to check them together. Okay, so we have the first example, which has the perimeter, and that comes out to be 24.8 centimeters, and then the second is 34.8, and that's centimeters squared. Next, we're going to do the circumference and area of this shape, which is the circle. So the part A, so the perimeter for this, is going to be pi times the diameter. So in this case, I need to know what is the diameter, and that is going to be 16, so 16 pi. And we'll just say meters. And then to do the area, that is going to be pi times the radius squared. So that's going to look like this, pi times 8 squared. So 8 squared, 64. 64 times 0.06. And again, for using meters, this would be meters squared. So in the next few examples, a little bit trickier. They're asking us to find the perimeter. It says area, but we're only going to be finding perimeter of this particular shape. So these first ones are going to be pretty easy here. These are just lengths, so you can just count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this one here would be 6. So it starts off with saying 11, but these other pieces are not so clear because we have to use the distance formula. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out the distance for, hold tight. Okay, so let's see, we're going to be finding this distance right there. So the first thing we need to do is to figure out the coordinate points. So I'm going to write down here, so EA has the coordinate points -3, 1. And A has 0, 4. So since we need to know that distance, what we're going to use is the distance formula, which is this formula here, where here we have the difference of our x's, and we just plug in then our numbers. So let's say this is x sub 1, this is y sub 1, this is x sub 2, this is y sub 2, and then we're just going to plug into our formula. So I'm going to scroll down just a little. So it looks like we're going to have, so let's take our x's, so 0 minus a -3, and that will be squared, plus our y sub 2, which is 4, minus 1, squared, and then we are going to just make sure your math is correct. This would give me a 3 squared underneath here, plus another 3 squared, which is going to be 9 plus 9, or the square root of 18. And that comes out to be approximately, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth, 4.2. So this guy up at the top, he's going to be 4.2, but we still need to find these other pieces here, and we're going to use that distance formula again. So I'm just going to switch the slides and go through that. So here we have the point A again, which is 4, 0. We have the other point, which is 0, 4. That is a B point. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to look for the difference. So here I would get 4 minus 0, and then 0 minus 4, which is just going to give you 4 squared plus 4 squared. And that's going to give you the square root of 16 plus 16, which is going to equal the square root of 32. And again, we're going to round, and the nearest to the nearest tenth would be 5.7. So down, we got those two down. We have this one over here done. We have this one over here done. We just need to do this one. So on that one, we're going to use point B again, which is 0, 4. Then we're going to use point C, which is 3, -4. And again, we're using the distance formula. So we would take, let's say our x is 3 minus 0 squared. Well, then we'd get 3 squared, so that will be the square root of 9, or squared 9, plus, and then I'm looking at my 4's, so I have 4 minus a -4, or you could have done that in the reverse. Either way, you're going to get that squared, and then we would get plus 8 squared. So we'd have the square root of 81 plus the square root 64, And when we do all of that math, we are going to get an answer of 12.0. So the last thing we would need to do is to just add up all of those parts. So let's check. So here we would get 12 plus, we had the bottom part here, which was 6, and the side part here, which was 5, 7, and that we just have to add them together to get the total. So 12 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4.2 plus 5.7 comes out to be 32.9. Okay, so I'd like you to pause the video onto the next problem, and you're going to work it out the same way using the distance formula. I'll press pause and then I'll just come back and check your work. Okay, here we go. I have the parts worked out here. First I have xw, that comes about to be approximately 5. wz, if I did my calculations correctly, also comes out to be about 5. And then yz comes out to be about root 17, and then y comes out to be 13. You just get your decimal approximations and add those together, and then it's not given in units particularly, so we would just say units.